Welcome to the virtual worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. Happy Easter. I'm Eileen, I'm the minister here, and we're meeting in this unusual way on this very unusual Easter. We have a virtual service on Zoom every Sunday at 10, and if you miss that, you can find a recording of the service on YouTube later in the day. So however you're joining us today, welcome. Whether it's your first time or your 1000th time, we're glad you could be here. I'm going to light our chalice this morning, and hopefully you'll light yours at home along with us as we recite our chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. At the beginning of Lent, I encouraged us to fast for the climate. I preached about how we could give up a great many things, many little things to save the earth, but that the one big thing we would have to give up was capitalism. And this isn't what I was envisioning, but this pandemic has laid bare how damaging, unfettered, late-stage global capitalism has been. It's those who are most vulnerable to its cruelties: poor folks, uninsured folks, people of color, low-paid workers, our elders, who have been made most vulnerable to this virus. As we imagine ways to be sowers of hope and healing this morning, let us hold them in our hearts. Let us allow their needs, their rights, their dignity to drive our work this Easter. Let us sow hope today, not for a return to normal, but for a whole world reborn. The call to celebration this morning is by Gretchen Haley. She writes, "Life comes for us in 1,000 different ways, undoes plans and upends traditions, knocks down the doors of our defense. In a moment, every expectation releases, like the in and out of breath. Life is urgent and also unbearably slow, and does not take well to our fantasies of control. We gather here to practice surrendering to the waves of grace and grief. In song, in silence, in story, we come to remember the possibility of a larger call, that we might offer our gifts with a surprising generosity, that we might release ourselves from the needing to know, that we might simply be present to this beauty, these partners, this hope that we make together. Come, let us worship together." And now, our Easter story, adapted from the Gospel of Mark. Jesus was dead on the cross. As the sun sank low in the sky, a small group of women, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome, watched as Jesus' body was wrapped in linen cloth and taken to a tomb cut into the rock of a nearby olive grove. "What about the proper burial traditions?" they asked anxiously, for they wanted to care for the body of their friend and teacher. "They will have to wait," answered Joseph of Arimathea grimly. "The Sabbath day of rest is beginning. Stand back and let us roll the stone door in place." They pushed the round stone along the groove in the rock that guided it firmly over the entrance to the cave. When the Sabbath was over, the women brought spices so that they could go and anoint Jesus. And very early, on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the heavy stone for us?" from the entrance to the tomb. When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man, dressed in a white robe, sitting to the right side. And they were alarmed, but he said to them, "Do not be afraid. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was executed. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he has gone ahead of you to Galilee." And so they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And this is the end of our story. Now, friends, I invite you into our practice of sharing joys and sorrows with one another. We are a community that holds one another in our pain and in our celebrations. So if you have something that's causing you pain this morning or something you feel celebratory about, I invite you to share it either in the chat box in Zoom or on the comments here on our video or on Facebook. Share with us what it is that's on your heart today. And whatever it is, however big or small, we are with you. I'd like to close our joys and sorrows as we hold all these many feelings in our hearts with a pastoral prayer. This is a prayer written by Kateri Boucher. This is a field called I Don't Know, and we are being asked to lie down in it. This is a door to God knows where, and we are being taken through it. This is a prayer called Why, and it is plenty for this morning. These are bodies calling out, and they are begging us to listen. These are hands called longing, and they will never stop their reaching. Amen. Now is the time in our service for us to engage with the spirit of generosity. So we normally pass a basket to take an offering at this time. And this morning, I want to let you know about a couple of ways that you can give out of your generous hearts to the church if you're able to this morning. So let me share those with you. So you can go to the church's website at canandaiguauu.org/connect, or using the connect button on the upper right. And there's an area there for you to give a donation electronically if you're able to this morning. Or you can always send a check to the church, and the address should be on your screen now. In both cases, you can note that your gift is intended for today's offering, and a quarter of it will be shared with our monthly service partner, which this month is Unirondac. And so I want to let you know, if you're able to, please share what you can this morning. And I also want to let you know an offer as well as an ask. If you're not able to, if you're struggling, please let me know. There are ways that the church can help you through this time. You may need to make use of the minister's discretionary fund. If, for example, you can't make rent this month because your job has been furloughed. Or you may need to use our take some, leave some bin on the porch of the church if you need some home goods but can't find them or don't have the cash for it right now. So you can reach out to me or stop by the porch of the church if you're struggling right now. And if you're not, I ask you to give generously in one of these ways on the screen this morning. And now it's time for is our time for centering, prayer, and some shared silence. I invite you into the spirit of meditation with me. I invite you to get comfortable in your seat, wherever it is you're sitting. Maybe let your feet touch the floor. Take a deep breath in, let it out with a sigh. And I offer you these centering words this morning. By the waters of Babylon, a long ago poet wrote, we sat down and wept, and we remembered Zion. How can we sing our old songs in a new land? And somehow, out of the swirling waters of the deep, the world is born. From the lightless void of space, bang, a whole universe. Enclosed in a shadowy womb, we become. Beneath the dank, wet earth, hope is getting ready to emerge. And in the dark of an empty tomb, something is stirring. Precisely when we find ourselves wailing at the river, wandering in the wilderness, weeping in the dark, we are being born and reborn. And only in the shadows of the empty spaces can we create a prayer, a song, a new world. Amen. So the story of Easter that we heard this morning was based on the earliest written version of that story that we have. The gospel author, who we call Mark, but whose real name we don't know, wrote it like this, like the way we heard it this morning. Not with a glorious and miraculous resurrection at its end, but with the mystery of an empty tomb. And right now, we're in a bit of an empty tomb moment, aren't we? We're in the middle of a story, the end of which we do not know. So what do we do when we can't see the ending? How can we be sowers of hope? How do we possibly minister to the world? Well, when I was training as a hospital chaplain, The supervisor of the pastoral care staff had one rule for us above all else. Let the heart have its day. Let the heart have its day. He knew that to rush people into peace and acceptance is to create an empty hope. So one night I hurried to the emergency room around 3 a.m., called by hospital staff who were distraught over a grieving mother who, having lost her son to gun violence, was wailing on the floor of the waiting room. I was called to control the situation, to help her move quickly from despair to hope, or at least to calm and order. But I knew, thankfully, that was not my job. My job was to let her heart have its day. So instead, I made room for her to weep, made sure she and the staff knew it was okay, it was appropriate to scream and wail and beat her fists against the floor in sorrow. Her heart needed that before hope could ever find its way in. So too with us, I think. I think we need to start this season with lament. The tradition our Puritan spiritual ancestors have left us often calls, like those emergency room staff, for order rather than lament. Many of us in this culture have received the message from an early age that uncertainty is the greatest sin, that to lament, to allow deep grief to overtake us, to rage at God or life with a furious heart, shows a void of faith. I disagree. Jesus himself lamented in this very text in Mark's gospel right before his execution. When Mark tells about Jesus praying what Christians now call the Lord's Prayer in the garden on the eve of his death, not sure what the next day would hold, he prays that prayer in the ancient Hebrew style of lament. The translation we use, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, might better be translated like, Our Father who better as hell be in heaven, make your name be holy here, damn it. Make your kingdom come, damn it. Make your will be done if that's what you really want, damn it. And it's funny to read it that way, yes. But the prayer of lament is an ancient Jewish form, and it's how a modern reading of basically all the Psalms would sound. So much of our lives are lived in that empty tomb moment, on the edge of some abyss too deep for us to peer into. The belief that we have to be orderly, calm, certain in any way is a lie that takes up all the space in a crisis. It is a lie that freezes us in place. Because if a perfect faith in love, in the cosmos, in goodness, in some kind of lesson or purpose to every trauma is required, then we're stuck in place trying to be the masters of our own universe. But lament allows us to do something. It allows us to do something because it is giving up the notion that we can do everything. Letting the heart have its day, even when what the heart needs is to wail in the emptiness of whatever tomb we stand facing this morning, lets us give the everything that is just too much to hold ourselves, over to grace. Lament makes room for grace. Here is where we find the audacity to hope, even to be sowers of hope. When we make room for our own hearts to be exactly where they are today. When we're uncertain enough to be certain we cannot do everything, believe everything, fix everything, we leave ourselves room to do something, to do one little thing. And all that hope needs is one little thing. One little thing to plant hope in the earth, in our hearts. One little thing to bring brightness and light to a dark time. One little thing that makes a promise to ourselves of tomorrow. All the members of the congregation should have received a little card from me this week with a few seeds inside. And if you haven't yet, please let me know in the chat box. I invite you this week to first let your heart have its day. Let yourself be in lament if that is what you need. Be like Jesus, sit in a garden and yell at God, at life, at the microbes, at the cosmos. Allow yourself to let your heart have its day. And then, knowing you cannot do everything, do one little thing. Sow these seeds, along with your joys and sorrows, in the earth. May they be a covenant between our aching hearts and all the earth. A promise that this one little thing I can tend. This one little thing I know will be here tomorrow. We don't have certainty, but we have enough hope to reach down to the earth like roots for fresh water. We don't have unwavering faith, but we have enough hope to send up tendrils toward the light of a new day. We may have only lament, but our lament can be the song we sing together when hope is hard to find. In this, we are part of the whole. Here shine our beautiful stalks, blooms, faces, singing a song of hopeful lamentation to a hurting world. You might plant your seeds somewhere near your home or in containers to be transplanted at the church when we're together again. I pray that seeing life emerge from the hard, dry, near nothingness of a seed, we will reap hope together this spring. And so I'll close with the words of our own Petra Page Mann, director of Fruition Seed Company, whose plants are the grandmothers of many of the seeds you received. May her words be a blessing on those seeds we plant and on the hope that grows from them. She writes, "Today we sow seeds, thousands of tomato seeds, because it's time to sow seeds. It's time to breathe our next breath. It's time to tell stories, and we must. Each generation is both the product of everything that's come before and the possibility of everything that could be. Each seed and each of us must adapt to the world we find ourselves in and transform the world by transforming ourselves. All sense of normalcy, with its one-size-fits-most vision of industrial centralized everything, has come to an end. Now let us never forget, one size fits most doesn't fit most of us. Don't wait for leaders of former normalcy to tell you what is happening, what isn't happening, what is safe. They won't. Don't wait for leaders of former normalcy to prioritize health, physical, mental, or spiritual over capitalism. They won't. Friends, we must sow our own seeds, tell our own stories, be our own dog following our noses home. We are all leaders now. We are the seeds, we are to the light. Now more than ever, let's sow seeds and commit ourselves to seeing and caring for ourselves, for our seedlings, for each other. May it be so.
Gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, free as that feathered leaf of May. Inch by inch and row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch and row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone pour them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Till the rain comes tumbling down.
I offer as a benediction these words from the poet Rilke. Our task is to take this earth so deeply and wholly into ourselves that it will resurrect within our being. And now, from our own homes, let us sing together our closing hymn, Come Sing a Song with Me. So friends, as we extinguish our chalices here and at home, wherever you are, I invite you to imagine that feeling of reaching out to hold one another's hands. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes maybe for a moment. and remember what it was to be a room full of people all holding one another, and know that is still who we are, who we always have been, who we always will be. Let us extinguish our chalices together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.